Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. So we are talking about globalization, but our meeting takes place in Azerbaijan. I can see behind you the Caspian Sea. My first comment is that everything is contextual. So when we are taking a look into the future, looking for an answer, what is to be done to improvement the standard of living of our people, which must be based on the ground of growing competitive in more knowledge-based economy. The question, of course, is always upon what it depends. In the morning, we had the privilege to listen to Professor Sanjar, Nobel Prize winner, and one of his advice was keep science out of politics and religion, and then keep politics and religion out of science. It's interesting, you know, because I'm a man of science. I was presented here mostly basically as 4 times Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of my small, great country of Poland, not far away from here. But I came to politics because of my policy-oriented research. Is it science or not? It is a very good question, economics. I'm basically an economist because sometimes we hear the expression sciences and economics. So there are the sciences and there is economics. But economics is also a science trying to find an answer to explain how the things work in the social process of economic activities and being engaged in axiology, in the system of values, therefore in ideology. It's very difficult to depart politics altogether because economics is about solution to the conflict of interest, but also conflict of ideas. And the instant we start to talk about different ideas, what sense makes economic activity, what are the values, what are the priorities, what are the targets, we are talking about politics, and then it is very challenging issue as much as anything, any theoretical questions our colleagues, they do have in the science proper. So being involved in economic research, I was invited to join the politics and policies. And what are the lessons? What is the message? The things happen the way they do because many things happen at the same time. So when I'm taking a look, is it the United States in December of 2021, or small, at the crossroad country like Azerbaijan? Is it big China or United Kingdom which left the European Union? Or is it my country or whatever? I'm taking a look first into geopolitics, next in history, which very much shapes the contemporary times and lay a shadow on the future, and then for comparative advantages, if any. Are we different? I remember when I was much younger than I am, I attended a conference at Columbia University in New York, and one of our great colleagues, an economist who unfortunately passed before he got the Nobel Prize, Rudy Donbur, said, "You are not different. You have to fix your exchange rate, you have to bring under control your public spending, you have to have a positive interest rate, you have to deregulate and privatize, and then the things will work." I listened to this smart guru of MIT, and I said, how wrong you are. We are different. There is one science of economics, but the conditions for economic activity are very different, and they depend. They depend what you have, and sometimes it is pretty good that you do have something like oil, but sometimes it is very bad that you have something like you have oil, because you may be under the curse of resources And instead of diversifying an economy, you may give too much attention to exploitation of this or that resource, as we did for many of years in my country. That was coal, or as they do with copper in Chile, or with oil in Sudan, or in gas in Qatar, and so on. So having said so, let me make second big point, which is about globalization. There's plenty of debates about globalization. Somebody says that it is already gone with the winds, that it's already a melody of the past. Somebody says that globalization has been put under reverse. Somebody says about slowization and so on. My observation is first that pretty often there are the arguments because people, including the scholars, the students, the professionals, the technocrats, are using the same notion for different issues or processes, or by the same name, or call the same process by different names. So what is globalization? Globalization is a historical, longer than our lifetime, and spontaneous, if not chaotic, process of liberalization and integration of thus far separately to the extent performing national economies, like Azerbaijani, or businesses, into one interconnected, worldwide, global market. What happens here depends upon what has occurred elsewhere and is causing somewhere elsewhere. So we must be very careful because globalization in this sense brings at the same time both new chance but also new risk. And therefore it is necessary to have a proper strategy for development which must be based on a proper economic scientific reasoning, taking into advantage these new chances, especially international or global supply chain, free trade, flow of capital, but it is also a challenge or a risk because capital can go elsewhere because the foreign companies can drive our businesses in bankruptcy, in ruins. So we have to know how to manage on microeconomic level and how to lead economic policy on macroeconomic level to take these chances at the era of globalization to our advantage. And globalization, according to this definition, is irreversible. So if I was asked by President Aliyev what would be advice for Azerbaijan, I have not come here to give an advice. I come here to learn from your wisdom. I would say, first things first. First, you have to redefine the aim of economic activity and on your economic policy. It cannot be any more maximization of GDP, of gross domestic product, as it must be a more complex index of well-being, like, for instance, inequality-adjusted human development index or well-being index, taking into account also the social balance and dynamism, social cohesion, inequality, investment in human capital on the one hand, and ecological balance between us and Mother Nature on the other hand. Then I would say you have to know what are your comparative advantages and taking into advantage your resources to diversify the economy. Economy must be diversified in the specialized, but at the same time diversified from the structural viewpoint to find a niche where one can be competitive and take advantage of this irreversible globalization. And then, unfortunately, there is politics. I'm not sure how it is in Azerbaijani, Azeri language. In English, we say policy, but we say also politics. In my language of Polish, which is very funny, we have one word for both terms. But I mean that politics sometimes makes the things of macroeconomic management easier and sometimes makes it more difficult. So therefore, the dialectic, the feedback between policies and politics is of crucial importance. What is the lesson from Polish experience? My last point here for country like Azerbaijan, it is that both the institutions, that is the rules of the game, friendly for business, for entrepreneurship, do matter, but so does the policies. And if one is able to take care of both at the same time, and one is knowing when one is aiming for, then one can be an author of a successful story. And from this perspective, I'm very positive about the future prospect of Azerbaijan, but it is not an easy task that calls for a joint, smart, knowledge-based effort. Do remember, make no mistake, not only the economy should be based more and more on knowledge. I wish, maybe this is a kind of naivete or utopia, that also politics will be more based on knowledge and less on emotions. Thank you.